They are in the humiliation of ignorance. I tell you, when you have 60 to 90 million illiterate people in the Arab world, that's not humiliation. That's the biggest source of humiliation. On such a night, if we want to honor Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, we have to make a commitment with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to pursue the path of knowledge as much as we can. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam was a fatherly figure for the Muslim society. He was a father for the orphans. He took care of the orphans. But the Ahlul Bayt teach us that there are two types of orphans. There's an orphan who's lost his parents, who's lost his father, who's lost his or her mother. And it's highly recommended for us to help them. The hadith says, if you wipe your hand on the head of an orphan to show that orphan compassion, love and mercy, for every strand of hair on the head of this orphan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you 1,000 palaces on the Day of Judgment. Each palace in paradise is greater than the world and what it contains. This is an orphan who's lost his parents. Al-Imam al-Askari alayhi salam says there's a second type of orphan. And helping this orphan has a greater reward than helping the first type of orphan. And Imam al-Askari in a beautiful hadith says, and we have a type of orphan who is orphaned from knowledge, who is orphaned from his imam. In our time of ghaibah, we are orphaned from our imam. We don't have direct physical access to the imam alayhi salam. We are missing that fatherly figure. We are all orphans indeed. He says the most orphan who's in need is the second type of orphan. He's orphaned from his teachings, from knowledge, from scholarship, from his imam. He says, whoever from our Shia takes the hand of this orphan and he gives him from our knowledge, I promise, يَكُونُ مَعَنَا فِي الرَّفِيقِ الْأَعْلَى. I promise that he will be with us in the highest levels of paradise on the Day of Judgment. If we want to honor the father of orphans on such a night, we honor him through the path of scholarship. We honor him through the path of knowledge. And we take care of the orphans of our society who are orphaned from knowledge. And we take care of our own families who are orphaned from knowledge and scholarship. Our scholars throughout history exerted so much effort and sacrificed so much so that today in 2015 we have a chance at learning our religion and learning our religious teachings and values. Because the most sacred type of knowledge is for you to know what your religion is. In a beautiful hadith, Al-Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says, وَجَدْتُ عِلْمَ النَّاسِ كُلَّهُ فِي أَرْبَعٍ. The Imam says, when I looked at all the knowledge that is out there, only 4 types of knowledge are the good types, are the beneficial types. Number 1, أَن تَعْرِفَ مَنْ رَبُّكَ. To know who your Lord is. To know who your Creator is. How much time do we spend on a daily basis to know who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is? We spend so much time knowing about everything in our society. We spend so much time knowing about, sport teams, about brands, about everything in society. But how much time do we spend knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The Imam says, know your Lord. Who is your Lord? Because I tell you, the greatest joy that the Ahlul Bayt had is when they came to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, even though he was wounded and the arrow was through his feet and it was paining him, giving him so much pain, but when he would start his salah and he would come to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the beauty of knowing Allah distracted him from the pain of the arrow. This is how the Imams of Ahlul Bayt found joy in this life, by coming to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says the second type of knowledge, أَن تَعْرِفَ مَاذَا صَنَعَ بِكَ. Know what your Lord did with you. Here comes the role of science. Know how the universe runs. Know the laws of physics, the laws of chemistry, the social sciences. Every cell in your body, you as a believer should know what its function is. Because Imam al-Sadiq says, مَاذَا صَنَعَ بِكَ. How did Allah create you? Examine your creation. See the wonders of Allah's creation. Unfortunately, the Muslim world has disregarded this aspect today. This is the role of science. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, in one of his companions, one of his students, Jabir ibn Hayyan, the Imam alayhi salam gave him a lesson in chemistry 500 pages long. 1,400 years ago. 1,300 years ago. Can you imagine? The Imam alayhi salam back then, in those backward societies, the Imam is spending from his precious time to teach one of his students chemistry. Yes, because it has value in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the third one, مَاذَا أَرَادَ مِنْكَ. What does Allah want from you? This is an important third type of knowledge. What does God want from me? Allah has created me. He's blessed me. He's given me everything. In return, what does my Lord want from me? What's expected from me? What is my responsibility? In the month of Ramadan, Allah trains us to become pious, God-fearing individuals. Always have Allah on our mind, despite the distractions of this life. You know, Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, this young man, when he was in the palace of Zulaykha, what a difficult test. In the palace of Zulaykha, and she was the most beautiful woman of her time in Egypt. She tried to distract him in every way possible. For 7 years, he was in her palace, owned by her. She owned him. She bought him as a slave. For 7 years in her palace, she would look at him. She would speak to him. He would not raise his eyes to look at her. After 7 years, she told him, Yusuf, 7 years you're in my palace. You haven't looked at me even once. What's wrong with you? Look at me. Your eyes are so beautiful. Look at me. You know what he told her? Look at the taqwa. See how God-conscious Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam is. He did not allow her to distract him in any way possible. He told her, Oh Zulaykha, if you look at these eyes, when I die in my grave, how they fall from its place and how the earth devours them. Trust me, you will run away from me. You will not say, I have these pretty, gorgeous eyes. She told him, but oh Yusuf, you smell so good. Your aroma is amazing. He told her, oh Zulaykha, I wish you could see my body 3 days after being buried. And the stench that emanates from it, you would run away from me. She tried to distract him, but because he knew Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he had seen the signs of Allah, he did not allow anything to distract him. ماذا أراد الله منك? Have we asked ourselves this question? What is it that my Lord wants from me? We're always concerned about what others want from us, what our society wants from us, what our government wants from us, what my spouse wants from me, what my parents want from me, what my friends want from me. But the last thing I think about is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from me. And the fourth type of knowledge, وَمَا يُخْرِجُكَ عَنْ دِينِكَ. And what is it that causes you to exit your religion? What are the red lines? As believers in Allah, do we know the red lines? Do we know what causes us to leave our religion, brothers and sisters? What allows us to exit the religion? Do we know? We have no clue. Sometimes it could be a word that I can say, a word that angers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and causes me to leave the religion in the eyes of Allah. Am I aware of those red lines? This is the true knowledge that Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam summarizes for us. And scholars throughout history have painstakingly reserved and preserved this knowledge for us. We are truly blessed to having them throughout history. if you simply come to know the amount that they sacrificed for the sake of humanity, it's amazing. Sahib al-Jawahir, al-Allama al-Jawahiri, this amazing man, who has a 40-volume book in Islamic law. You know how he authored this book? Today this book is such an important book in the seminaries. But do you know how he authored this book? He was so poor, he would go to the public restrooms in the middle of the night. That's when he was to write his book, because he had no money to buy a candle in his house. He would go to the public restrooms simply to get the light, because there was few candles there. He would sit there all night long. Can you do that for a single night, brothers and sisters? Can you do that for a single night, for a single hour, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Allahu Akbar. This is how our scholars sacrificed in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we want to honor Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, we honor scholarship. We honor the path of knowledge. In our society today, there are many challenges. Islam is under the spotlight. We are accused, all types of accusations. The Quran is accused as being a book of violence. They'll take verses out of context and tell you this is a violent verse. This is a verse against women. This is a wife-beating verse. This is that. This is this. Do we have the knowledge to answer? I tell you, it's an obligation. It's wajib. Every single one of us here tonight, it's wajib upon us to pursue the path of knowledge. Make a commitment now with Ali ibn Abi Talib. Oh Ali, they physically killed you, but they could not kill your knowledge. And I will do my best to uphold your knowledge in my life and in my society. Make a commitment now with Ali ibn Abi Talib. If you don't, you'll be missing out. The challenges are too great. We have to have the answers. We need to know our Quran, the context of those verses, why they were revealed, in order to address these misconceptions. That's how we honor Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Oh Ali, even if they struck you on such a night, they could not take away your knowledge and your scholarship.